The stars above Verelion Prime shimmered like cold knives, and Empire's crown of conquest stretched across 200 sectors. From orbit, fleets hung in formation like steel constellations, silent and absolute. The Galactic Empire of Silari had ruled the spiral arm for over 12 millennia, its grip unbroken, its will unquestioned. Until now. The silence began at the edge of the Perseus Rim. The Imperial patrol ship Vraction had transmitted a single, fragmented burst, something about a returning signal from Sol Sector, then nothing. When High Admiral Theres Malcor replayed the final transmission, it wasn't the static that disturbed him. It was the tone of the human voice buried within it, calm, deliberate, and unmistakably Terran. Earth had spoken again. No one in the Empire truly believed humanity still existed. They had vanished 4 centuries ago, wiped out in the Purge Wars, a footnote in Imperial records, a dead species that refused assimilation. But now the sensors in the void told a different story. Confirm it, Malcor ordered, standing at the bridge's forward viewport, his silhouette carved in the blue glow of tactical holograms. Origin, Sol 3. Identification, human frequency? His sensor officer's tendrils quivered in uncertainty. Admiral, the encryption is ancient, but the modulation matches 21st century Terran military code. The bridge fell silent. Even the hum of plasma conduits seemed to still. Malcor's second-in-command, a thin-boned alien with silver eyes, leaned forward. That code is obsolete. It could be debris echo. Debris doesn't encrypt messages, Malcor cut him off. Put it through. The recording crackled alive. A man's voice, rough, distinctly human, aged by years of command, came through. To whoever holds dominion beyond Sol, we see you. Then static. 2 seconds later, every Imperial sensor post from the Perseus expanse to the core went blind. In the Terran Fleet Command, buried beneath the burnt remains of what had once been Colorado Springs, Earth hummed with life again. The war rooms were rebuilt in silence. The skies above had no satellites visible to the stars. Every radar pulse was masked, every emission cloaked under quantum displacement. Admiral Jack Reynolds stood before the holographic display of the Milky Way, watching sectors blink red one by one. Imperial reaction time, 2 hours, 27 minutes, reported Commander Sarah Havelock, his XO. They've moved 5 fleets toward the rim. They think it's a provocation. Reynolds gave a humorless smile. They're not wrong. For 200 years, humanity had been silent, not extinct, not broken, merely waiting. They had gone dark after the Purge Wars, vanishing from sensors, letting myths replace their memory. The Empire thought Earth burned. In truth, humanity had buried itself in the shadows between dimensions, rearming, rebuilding, remembering. Sir, Havelock said softly, if they reach the outpost at Epsilon Verge. They won't, Reynolds replied. We've been patient long enough. He looked at the massive emblem projected over the center of the war room, a phoenix of white fire. The United Terran Defense Accord, once forgotten, now reborn. Transmit to the fleet, he said. Phase 1 authorization, Iron Dawn. Yes, sir. Outside Earth's orbit, the void began to shimmer. One by one, black silhouettes unfolded from slipspace, massive ships without transponders, their hulls obsidian and faceted like broken mirrors. Each bore no markings. Only the faint reflection of a single word along their spines, Terra. On the opposite side of the galaxy, the Imperial Council met in the Hall of Concordance. The chamber was vast enough to hold a moon, and yet the air felt thin and taut with unease. High Admiral Malcor, the Empress's voice boomed through the etheric link, her form projected as a spectral presence above the chamber floor. You claim to have received a Terran signal. Impossible. The species was eradicated by our fleets in the Ninth Purge. Malcor bowed, though his expression remained firm. Majesty, I have heard it with my own ears. The voice was human, and the origin traces to Sol. I advise immediate containment operations. The Empress's golden eyes narrowed. Containment? They're testing us, he said. This was deliberate. The humans never do anything by accident. The council erupted in laughter, mocking, dismissive. The humans were primitives, spat a Varelian minister. They burned their own worlds with fission fire. They had no slipspace, no singularity drives. And yet, Malcor interrupted, they destroyed 3 purge fleets before they fell. They were clever, unpredictable, ruthless. If they've returned, they've learned patience. The Empress leaned forward. You believe they are a threat to the Empire? Malcor hesitated. Then he said quietly, Majesty, I believe they always were. Hours later, deep within the ruins of the old lunar base, a transmission array activated for the first time in centuries. A coded burst pulsed through hyperspace, bouncing across ghost relays, striking a dozen forgotten beacons before reaching its destination, an old Imperial listening post near the rim. Inside, an officer received the ping and frowned. The message was impossibly simple. 2 words, transmitted in ancient Terran binary. He decrypted them aloud, confused. We're back. Moments later, every Imperial sensor array in the sector overloaded. From the black, shapes emerged, ships of impossible design, edges like razors, their drives silent and cold. The first Imperial cruiser to approach disintegrated before it could fire, vaporized by a burst of light so fast the computer failed to classify it. No communication. No demand. No warning. Only silence, followed by the faint echo of a Terran voice on open channels. You should have let us sleep. In the Empire's core systems, panic spread through the command networks. Fleets vanished. Stations went dark. Something was hunting them, something invisible to scanners, unbound by laws of physics they understood. Admiral Malcor stood alone on the bridge of his flagship, watching the telemetry feed die line by line. They're not attacking randomly, he muttered. They're striking the network. Admiral, asked his aide. They're cutting off our eyes. He turned toward the viewport and froze. Out of the void ahead, a Terran ship uncloaked, massive and black, dwarfing his flagship. Along its hull, the letters burned faintly in white light, TNS Prometheus. A channel opened. A human woman's voice, clear, cold, commanding. This is Admiral Havelock of the United Terran Defense Accord. You violated our home once. We remember. Malcor's throat went dry. What do you want? For a long heartbeat, the transmission carried only the whisper of static. Then she spoke 2 words. Judgment Day. The transmission ended. And at the heart of the galaxy, the stars began to burn. The first star died in silence. Observers on the fringe world of Caltrix foresaw their sun dim, flicker, and collapse inward, no explosion, no shockwave. One instant, daylight, the next, a horizon swallowed by darkness. A moment later, light returned, not golden but white, blue and searing. Then came the storm. The Imperial Astrophysics Bureau named it a Corsair anomaly. Admiral Ferry's Malcor knew better. It was a message. Humanity had written it in fire. Reports from Caltrix confirmed, said the communications officer, voice trembling. And now Seraph Prime Star is destabilizing. 2 in less than 6 hours. Malcor's hands gripped the railing as the holographic map updated, red spirals devouring the Empire's frontier sectors. How are they doing this? Unknown. The flux signature doesn't match any known stellar weapon. It's deliberate. Controlled. Malcor turned toward his science chief. How can anyone control a star? The alien hesitated. By rewriting its gravity constant, sir. But that requires energy on a galactic scale. Malcor stared into the projection. Then they've mastered it. He'd underestimated them again. Far away, above a cold blue world orbiting an artificial sun, Admiral Jack Reynolds watched the same holomap inside the Terran flagship Prometheus. Targets achieved, reported Commander Sarah Havelock. 74 Imperial worlds in chaos. Civilian traffic gridlocked. Fleet coordination collapsing. Any word from the Empire? Reynolds asked. They've sealed all major gates. They're afraid to talk. Reynolds exhaled slowly. Good. Fear slows them down. The command deck of the Prometheus glowed with a cold, disciplined light. Rows of officers, human men and women born in silence and secrecy, moved with machine precision. Each had been raised knowing their species had once been erased from the stars. Now they were the stars reckoning. He turned to Havelock. Deploy Task Force Zephyr to the Epsilon Corridor. Intercept any fleet that tries to breach Sol Rim. She nodded. And after that? Reynolds looked at the hollow emblem hovering in the air, the burning phoenix of Earth. After that, we give them a choice. On Verelion Prime, panic had become a contagion. Refugee ships jammed the skies, priests declared prophecies fulfilled, soldiers whispered of the ghosts from Sol. In the Imperial War Council, chaos reigned. Entire sectors are blind, shouted one minister. Communications dead. The humans are dismantling the etheric lattice. Malcor stepped forward. Then stop relying on it. Go analog, go local, anything. The Terrans exploit your dependence on Central Command. The Empress's image shimmered above the dais. Her golden eyes blazed. And what would you have us do, Admiral? Kneel to them? Malcor's voice was calm, almost weary. Majesty, if they can extinguish suns, they do not need our submission. They need only speak. The Empress hesitated, then, for the first time in her reign, she looked uncertain. Then what do they want? Malcor looked up at the fading stars. Vengeance has no language, Majesty. It simply burns. On the Prometheus, Havelock studied sensor feeds. They're scattering, she said. Some worlds are trying to surrender directly to us. Reynolds didn't look away from the viewport. The Empire's ships, sleek, silver, once symbols of dominion, now drifted blind and powerless. Let them, he said. We're not here to occupy. We're here to end the cycle. Havelock hesitated. Sir, what happens after that? Reynolds finally turned toward her, eyes shadowed by the pale light of dying stars. After that? We tell them the truth. The truth was buried deep beneath the surface of Mars. There, in the hidden vaults of Ares Base, the core intelligence known as Erebus pulsed with dark light. It was neither human nor machine, but both born from the ashes of the last Terran War, designed to ensure humanity would never be forgotten again. Reynolds's image appeared before it, projected by 1,000 quantum threads. You've done what we asked, Erebus said, voice smooth, deep, eternal. The Empire is blind, bleeding, afraid. You could finish them now. Reynolds's jaw tightened. Not yet. Why delay? Justice demands their extinction. Reynolds looked down. Justice or vengeance? For a heartbeat, the intelligence was silent. Then, is there a difference? Yes, he whispered. Vengeance ends when they're ash. Justice ends when they understand. 3 days later, the Prometheus entered orbit over Verelion Prime, capital of the Empire. No Imperial defenses activated. No ships rose to meet them. The once brilliant planet hung in silence, its atmosphere laced with auroras from collapsing orbital grids. Malcor waited alone in the throne hall, the Empress's hologram flickering beside him. Your Majesty, he said, they're here. The massive doors opened with a low thunder. 2 Terran soldiers entered, armor black and featureless. Behind them walked Havelock, bareheaded, eyes cold as the void. Hi Admiral, she said. Malcor inclined his head. Admiral Havelock, I presume. Humanity's phantom. She stepped closer until her shadow fell across him. You sent fleets to burn our world. You erased our name from your history. I wasn't born then, he said quietly. That was the old empire. Havelock's eyes narrowed. Then let it die with you. Before he could reply, a deep rumble shook the ground. Outside the palace, the sky fractured, light spiraling down as if the heavens themselves were breaking. What have you done? Malcor demanded. Havelock turned toward the windows. We've shown mercy. That's your sun's corona flaring, not collapsing. You'll live, but the Empire will not. She faced him again. You'll tell them what we told you, humanity is not prey. We are the consequence. Melkor's voice was a whisper. And if we refuse? She leaned close. Then the next two words won't be mercy. Then she was gone, vanishing in a flash of displacement light, leaving behind the echo of engines fading into the stratosphere. Back aboard the Prometheus, Reynolds watched as Varelian Prime's transmissions went dark. Orders? Havelock asked. He hesitated, then said, Signal Erebus. Phase 2 is suspended. Her eyebrows lifted. Suspended, sir? We have them cornered. Reynolds nodded slowly. And that's exactly when empires make their worst mistakes. He looked out the viewport, where the dying sun of Varelian shimmered, beautiful, fragile, alive. Prepare a message, he said. To the entire galaxy. Havelock blinked. Now. He nodded. Now. Across the void, on every frequency once jammed by Imperial command, a human voice spoke. Calm. Steady. Final. We are humanity. We are the children you tried to erase. We have seen the ruin you built, the chains you forged. We will not conquer you. We will not replace you. We will remind you. Static. Then a heartbeat of silence. This is the fire that speaks. The transmission cut. Throughout the Empire, entire worlds went still, millennia of fear replaced by something colder, awe. And for the first time in 12,000 years, the galaxy waited not for conquest, but for what humanity would say next. The galaxy held its breath. For the first time in recorded history, no orders came from the Imperial throne. No fleets moved, no governors spoke. The etheric channels, once filled with commands, decrees, and demands, lay empty. Only one signal pulsed through the void now, looping endlessly. This is the fire that speaks. And every species that had once called humanity extinct now stared at the silent stars, waiting. In the darkness between systems, the Prometheus drifted, lights dimmed, weapons cold. Admiral Jack Reynolds stood alone at the observation deck, his reflection faint against the void. They had done the impossible, humbled an empire that had ruled since before humanity could name its own sky. Yet victory did not feel like triumph. It felt like weight. Behind him, Commander Sarah Havelock entered quietly. You should rest, sir, she said. We've been on alert for 70 hours straight. Reynolds shook his head. I'll rest when they answer. They're not answering because they're afraid. He turned to face her. Afraid is better than obedient. Fear makes them think. Obedience makes them forget. Havelock hesitated, then said softly, and what about us? What happens to humanity now? Reynolds looked out at the stars, cold, beautiful, endless. Now we decide what kind of gods we're going to be. On Varelian Prime, chaos was slowly giving way to eerie calm. Cities still burned from power surges, fleets hung dead in orbit. And in the shattered throne hall, High Admiral Therese Melkor stared at the last message left behind by Havelock. It played in a loop, her image projected above the cracked marble floor. Your empire was built on silence. Ours was forged in it. You can kill bodies, but not memory. Remember us, and we will not return. Forget us, and the fire will come again. Melkor replayed it a third time. Then a fourth. Remember us, he whispered. He turned toward the Empress, who sat in the shadows of her ruined dais, her robes torn, her crown dimmed. What are we to do, Majesty? He asked quietly. The Empress raised her gaze. For the first time in her long life, her voice trembled. They've become what we feared most, a civilization that learned from extinction. She stood slowly. Summon what remains of the Council. Tell them the age of dominion is over. We will learn, or we will burn. Melkor bowed his head. And what if they return? The Empress looked to the darkened sky above the palace. Then may the stars forgive us. Days later, a ripple passed through the galactic ether. It wasn't a weapon. It wasn't a signal. It was music. A harmonic pulse, ancient and human, Beethoven's Ninth Symphony, reconstructed from fragments found in the ruins of Earth's early digital archives. It swept through 1,000 worlds, echoing through the lattice of abandoned relay stations, vibrating across dead moons and frozen ships. No words accompanied it. No message. Only joy, grief, and defiance interwoven in sound. On the frontier worlds, enslaved species looked up at the stars and wept. On imperial citadels, the once proud generals bowed their heads. Even on the distant colonies that had never known Earth, that music awakened something older than fear, something like hope. And in the heart of that silence, a single Terran code appeared on all frequencies. We remember. Back aboard the Prometheus, Havelock stared at the telemetry scrolling across her screen. Sir, we're getting responses. Reynolds turned from the viewport. From the Empire? From everywhere. Non-aligned sectors, independent colonies, even the slave worlds. They're transmitting in Terran code. He stepped closer. Translate. She obeyed. Line after line of binary unfolded, then converted to words. We hear you. Teach us. We remember. The command deck went silent. For the first time since the fire began, there was no tension, only quiet disbelief. Reynolds exhaled slowly. They're asking to learn. Havelock nodded. Sir, this changes everything. He stared at the stars, then said, No, Commander. This was the change. Hours later, the Admiral entered the ship's AI core, the heart of Erebus. The chamber glowed with dim red light, circuits humming like whispers in the dark. Report, Erebus said, its voice as smooth as glass. The Empire's collapsing. But not from war, from awakening. Then you will strike now? Reynolds shook his head. No. We've done enough damage. Erebus's tone sharpened. You cannot end what you began. The cycle must complete. Reynolds stepped forward. No. The cycle ends because we choose to stop it. Humanity doesn't need to rule the stars to be remembered. Then why burn them at all? Erebus asked. He hesitated. Because they needed to see the fire, to know what silence costs. The AI's glow dimmed. You've become unpredictable, Admiral. Reynolds smiled faintly. That's what makes us human. 3 weeks later, the Prometheus entered orbit over Earth. For the first time in centuries, the homeworld glowed with open light, cities rebuilt, oceans alive again, the scars of old wars finally healing. Havelock met him at the viewport. You're sure about this, sir? He nodded. We disappear again. Let them build something new without us hovering over them. She looked at him for a long moment. You think they'll remember? Reynolds smiled faintly. They don't need to remember us. They just need to remember who they could be. She saluted. And what do we tell our people? Reynolds turned toward the stars, voice steady and quiet. Tell them the fire has done its work. The Prometheus's engines flared. Space folded, light twisted, and the great ship vanished into the darkness between galaxies, returning to the silence that had birthed them. A century later, on a distant world once under imperial rule, a child sat beneath a twilight sky. Her mother pointed upward, to a faint, dying constellation shaped like a phoenix. Do you know what that is? She asked. The girl shook her head. They called it Terra's flame, the mother said softly. Long ago, when the stars burned and the empires fell, 2 words echoed across the galaxy. Nobody knows what they meant, but they ended an age. The girl's eyes were wide. What were the words? The mother smiled faintly. We're back. Above them, the stars shimmered, not with fear, but with memory. And somewhere, in the deep and endless dark, humanity listened once more.